I would say, like, obviously, any Christian would agree that the way of acts, begetting and begotten, is not identical to the divine essence insofar as formalities are included. But if you're talking about relational constitutive properties like paternity and so on, they are in reality identical to the divine nature, but not on formalities. So that's what my argument hinges on. I'm cashing this out in some sort of like denotative content or extensional lens. So that's number one. Number two, the argument still follows because I see the identity relation which you affirmed yourself. You said there's no real distinction between the divine nature and the persons, but there is true opposition between the persons, i.e., there's a true distinction. And I already justified how that functional opposition will still carry on to the divine nature.
How?
Okay, so let me touch on that first. Because of the fact that the functional opposition, what is it called, carries out by virtue of the fact that the relative and absolute aspect satisfy an equivalency relation in reality. They satisfy an equivalency relation in reality, hence the absolute and relative aspect are one and the same. That's why I believe it carries over. That's number one. And because it carries over, I believe the distinction between, for instance, take the sun and the divine.
Like begging
let me just finish my point. Let me just finish my point. And because of the functional opposition carrying over to the absolute act, that is why the sun is going to be discerned from the divine nature in one instance in reality and assumed to be identical to that same divine nature, which is going to be tantamount to a P and not P.
Wait, yeah, look, I have to cut you off when you're talking so that I can actually grasp what you're saying bit by bit so that I don't go over what you're saying. So you're saying that it's because of the equivalency relation that the opposition between the persons is going to extend to the nature, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, for one, okay, before I assume what you mean, what do you mean by equivalency relation?
Identity and reality.
Okay, so it's because of their real identity, right?
The way I'm catching it on this instance.
Okay, but I just told you how real identity could be understood in two senses.
So, yeah, but that doesn't really answer my point because
it does answer I already the nature is entitative, and the persons are not entitatively different from each other. They're really different from each other. Because
I know, but thing is, look, listen, the issue I have with
this two completely different things we're talking about.
Can I assess this?
Go on.
Thing is, this is just begging a question because that's just telling me, oh, they're not going to be entitatively different because we classify them and categorize them as not entities, as rather relationally subsistent, like what is called relatively subsistent acts. That is the issue. But that's just begging a question. One moment. Dude, let me finish. I'll let you finish. That's going to be begging a question because you're just saying that, hey, we have the stance where we say the persons are not entitatively different, hence they're not entitatively different because we categorize them differently. I am justifying as to why the functional opposition is going to carry over to why it's going to be entitatively different by virtue of the fact they're one and the same in reality. Hence, if you take paternity, which opposes filiation in reality, and the relative aspect which these relative oppositions take off, are one and the same with the absolute aspect. The relative and the absolute aspect are one and the same, hence they satisfy an equivalency relation. That is my point. Just a moment, repeating your stance is just going to be begging a question. You're essentially just saying we have them categorized differently, hence they cannot be the case. I am contesting that. I'm saying that you're unjustified in that assertion, and I'm giving an account as to why my assertion is going to be justifiable by virtue of the fact of the equivalency relation between the relative aspect, which has the functional opposition, and the absolute aspect, which is equivalent to the relative aspect. Go on.
Okay. First off, you need to learn how to speak simply so I can really catch what you're saying. Because every single time, because when I'm talking to you, I genuinely want to actually understand what you're saying. Now, I've grasped what you're saying, but I'm just going to ask you this simple question. I'm going to say one thing and then ask you a question. When you say I'm begging the question, you are bringing an argument to my position, okay? I am giving you the Trinitarian position. I'm giving you my position because you asked me what is my position, the scotistic position. And then I am giving you the position, and then you're telling me that I'm begging the question. I'm not begging the question because I'm not making an argument. I'm giving you my position.
Can I assess that?
And then I'm gonna have to ask you this question. Do you believe that there can be two things that exist that are entitatively the same, an entity in essence, and have two different formal properties that make a relative opposition between two things in that same entity
Okay, can I assess this?
and thus constitute two really different things with the same
Can I assess this?
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, your initial point about statistic position. Sure, dude, listen, look, about the positions thing, listen, as long as you agreed to the two suppositions that I have, I suppose two stances and I draw a inference of P and a P and not P therein. You agreed to those propositions, which they're, what is it called? They're identical in reality.
told you it was
They're-
ambiguous,
one moment,
though.
just one moment. They're identical in reality to the divine nature, and they're not identical in how they relate to each other. That's all I need. That's what I wanted. Nothing more, nothing less. That is number one. Number two, you mentioned something about, begging a question. I'll tell you why it's begging a question. You're giving me, one moment, you're giving me the premise and the conclusion, and as an undercutter to my, to what is it called, to my line of reasoning, which is my argument. That is the whole point. You're trying to give an undercutter defeater, which I see as begging a question. That is the entire
not
point.
giving-
Why is, hold
I'm
on,
not
one
giving a
moment.
defeater to your
Dude, no, one moment. Look. If it is not, hold on. If it is not an undercutter defeater, what else do you have? A no reason defeater? You're just gonna tell me there's no reason to hold to it? I gave you an account. I told
That
you why the
doesn't
function
say-
opposite. Just a moment. I gave you an account. I told you a function opposition why it carries over to the absolute act, and you told me, well, I don't know, do you this and everything? Well, the stance is this. I'm telling you, this is going to be begging a question because I've given you a reason. So you cannot invoke some no reason defeater therein. I've also, given the fact that you just repeated the stance. Hold on, just let me finish. You repeated the stance. You just told me, hey, this is why we believe the persons are not entitatively different. They're only different insofar as their subsistent relations, how they relate to each other as per their correlative notion, which presumably you would agree with and so on. Thing is, that is just not telling me much because I'm giving you an account as to why the function opposition goes through. You're not telling me anything in response to that. You're just
Okay.
repeating the stance.
I asked you a
I was
question.
making a question, and let me respond to your second point because you asked that. For your second point, first of all, I'm being charitable as what is it called, using the scholastic glossary and to cashing out this argument. But when you ask me about like identified within essence, everything, first of all, dude, I'm a person that doesn't even believe essences exist. I take some like more anti-realist view. If you want my position from that, that's my position. But thing is, that is completely irrelevant and tangential to the topic because the topic is the Trinity and equivalency relations. It has nothing to do with whether or not Vienna believes, what is it called, essences and how they relate to each other and they're identified within each other, trying to obtain. That's not going to tell anybody much. So go on.
Okay, first off, where do you even start here? So, on your first point, I'm not begging the question. I'm stating my position. If you misconstrue my position, then I'm going to reiterate my position. There's no such thing as a quote unquote no reason defeater. Like I'm just literally reinstating my position so you can get it right. Second of all, I can accept your propositions for your argument, but I can still say that they're ambiguous. So the more you delineate it and make it specific, the better we can go on in the argument. And I told you that they were ambiguous. So just because I accept them doesn't necessarily mean that the conclusion follows. This happens a lot in philosophy. For two, yeah, you can accept premises to an argument and the conclusion wouldn't necessarily follow because of the ambiguity.
One moment, this is not some sort of, hold on. First of all, a proposition is truth apt, okay? Since you accepted them, where's the point of ambiguity there? That is number one. That is, I don't know where you got that from.
Because the conclusion might be a non sequitur. So it might not necessarily.
One moment, hold on. If an argument attempts to be deductive, i.e., follows a tautological pattern, like
You're not talking about
one moment. If you take a modus ponens,
you're not talking about a deductive argument. We're talking about an inductive argument.
You think I'm making an inductive argument?
No, I don't think so.
So what is your point?
I'm just saying that there are times when I can accept.
Okay, one moment. Critical. Listen. There is no Deduction formally is if the premises are sound, the conclusion cannot fail.
I agree.
What is your point?
I'm saying that I can accept. Okay, let me finish my statement. Okay, look, stop trying to do this. Let me finish what I'm saying. I can accept a statement that you've made, and still want to delineate it and make it specific so that the argument can go through.
Then why'd you accept it?
I accepted this. Oh my gosh, man. I accepted the statement that.
Stop trolling, yeah.
I accepted the statement that you.
Stop trolling, yeah.
I accepted the statement that you made, and I said committed the fallacy of the ambiguous middle term. Now I'm gonna go back
critical propositions.
go back to what I said
If
before.
if they're not truth apt, let's take a proposition like future propositions, for instance. They're going to be epistemologically.
What does a proposition mean to you?
A declarative statement. But listen, look.
A declarative statement. Okay, look.
Just a moment. Let me finish my point. Now, if you say if there's an instance of epistemological is going to drink water, or he drank water tomorrow, and so on. And what is it called? In these instances, just a moment, let me finish. In these instances, typically, presumably, you would suspend judgment from this. You wouldn't apply a truth value because it is not truth apt, and you can justify them not being truth apt given some sort of.
I'm talking about judging.
One moment.
No. I was speaking and then you interrupted me. Excuse me. One moment. I'm not talking about I'm not talking about judging a proposition to be true. I'm talking about accepting the.
Then what did you mean accept?
Because I'm talking about accepting the proposition. I'm taking in what you've told me and I'm delineating it. I'm making it more specific.
When you say accept, is that equivalent to taking it as true?
Why did you say I should?
Vienna. I mean, Mod, you have to actually let him speak. I've been listening the whole time. You do interrupt him a lot. I've actually stayed.
One moment, Amos, to assess what you said. Look, by the way, interruptions even happen from his...
Vienna, you're interrupting me as well.
I can play
critical... Wait, that's what I'm saying. Vienna, let critical Thomist speak, please, and then you can talk. He's allowed you to speak.
I know. Amos, I'm not doing it intentionally. You know, we're trying to have a dialogue and everything. I even gave opportunity to speak, and I believe that was interrupted too.
Okay, here's the thing.
I don't want dog piles.
All right,
just allow each other to speak. That's it.
Let me just finish my thought, because he's interrupting me a lot. But here's the point. Okay, Christians believe in the Trinity. Okay, let's go back to the original point. When I say accept a proposition, I'm just saying, look, I can take it in, I can take the statement and delineate it, make it specific to see if that you understand my position. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that I'm judging it to be true. Now, the term accept, maybe me and you can disagree on what it means, but that's whatever. Fine. Let's just talk about the Trinitarian standpoint. On the term of the Trinity, we believe that the person of the Son is different from the person of the Father and is formally different from the essence, and the person of the Son and the Father are really different. And you're saying that the functional opposition, so the fact that the Son is really different from the Father, right? That's going to extend to the nature because the Son has this, all the stupid big analytic terms. Just going to make it simple. That the Son has the same divine existence as the Father. And so because the Son is opposing the Father, the divine existence of the Son is going to oppose the divine existence of the Father. It's that simple. And even if that's your position, and even if you're an anti-realist, as long as you don't want to argue about worldviews, if we can give realist examples or realist metaphysical examples of two formal properties constituting a relative opposition in one material reality, then it's going to obviously show that at least given a realist worldview, whether you want to talk about anti-realism, at least given a realist worldview, that this is hypothetically possible. Why is it hypothetically possible? Because of the nature of what a form is and the nature of what a res is. The res is what gives action to the formalities or to the qualities, okay? The formalities have enough act to constitute a relative opposition between the formalities in that res. But it does not mean that the opposition between the two formalities, for example, the person of the Father and the person of the Son, extend to the essence, because the essay ad, the relative formality that means being towards in Latin, and the essay in, which is the material reality, those two things are still formally different and they're non-mutually logically identical. So the point is that, for example, a man in a realist view is composed of rationality and animality. Now, obviously, rationality and animality exist in the same time as man. They exist, they have the same reality. But it would be stupid for Nick, Amos, Asus, Christus, Gnosis, or Neutral to come up here and tell me, oh yeah, an animal and the fact that a man is an animal and the fact that a man is irrational is the same thing. No, they're not the same thing. They're contradictory. Why? Because in the intellect, by its very nature, functions with non-brute items. And animality, by its very nature, functions with brute items. So the animality and rationality are nowhere formally the same. But however, they're still the same in reality. They still make up the same human being. So we have in reality one person that's constituted of two different formal properties and still have one same reality. We could have two formalities in the divine essence that oppose each other and are different from each other, but they're still constituted of the same reality, the divine nature. And so when you keep saying you're justifying, you haven't given an argument as to why the functional opposition between the persons extend to the nature. You haven't done that. And when you do that, you have already confessed that you're coming from an anti-realist presupposition. According to a realist supposition, it's not justified at all. And I've given...
Can I assess this?
I've given multiple real-world examples of how it is not justified. It's so simple. So if you want to counter my argument, please counter...
Okay, can I assess this?
Please counter the real-world examples that I gave.
Oh, hold on, pause. So let me assess this. Number one, you mentioned some stuff about like, I'm going to speak counterfactually or hypothetically about, about real-world examples. Number one, I want to address one thing. You literally beg the question again because you're just repeating the stance. You're just saying, hey, because they're formally different and so on. Again, dude, I let you speak. Don't interrupt me. Now, for the billionth time, this is my third time saying this. I'm not including formalities. When you tell me they're different, the person or the father is different from the essence within formality, that's literally jargon that is irrelevant to the topic.
It's my position.
Dude, one moment. Why are you interrupting me? Let me finish.
That's why let him talk.
Wait, Amos, the guy is interrupting me. Come on.
Yeah.
Anyways, that is number one. Number two, I even told you that, listen, when you told me accepting a proposition and everything, not giving a judgment, when you say accept, if you don't take that to be true, I don't know what else do you take that to be. That's number one. Number two, you said the proposition that persons are materially identical to the divine nature is true. And the proposition that persons are different from each other in reality is also true.
Yes. What's the problem?
Yeah, exactly. That is the 2 points. That's the only two suppositions.
What's the problem with that?
Why are you interrupting?
I'm not interrupting you.
Yeah, exactly. So let me finish. Anyways, so that is the 2 points. That's the only two proposition my argument hinges on, nothing more. Now, once you assess that, I said, because of this fact, because it's the equivalency relation hinged on the first proposition I've given and the opposition given between in relation to the persons, I believe the function of opposition would carry on to the absolute act by the virtue of the equivalency relation. One moment. By virtue of the equivalency relation that is satisfiable between the absolute and relative aspect. That is the entire point. And for the counterexamples, one moment. For the counterexamples, humanity and rationality, 1 minute. I'll even suppose realism for your view. All you're saying, there's a human being such that a human being satisfies the property of humanity and rationality. That is it. It just picks out different features of the subject. That is all properties are. You're not giving me a point. Nobody says the property. One moment. Nobody says the property of humanity and rationality is one and the same as as humanity in the sense that we're talking about equivalency relations.
Animality and rationality.
Yeah. Anyways, now for For the final point, you haven't given me any response against against my argument, which is why the functional opposition carries over, and in turn that would implicate a contradiction. All you've done is repeat the stance. I've given you an account as to why the functional opposition carries over, because you believe the opposition is real. You believe the identity is also real. And because the absolute and relative aspect are identical, the equivalency relation is satisfied, hence the functional opposition carries over.
Okay.
So one moment. I want to ask you two questions. Hold on.
No, but why does
I want to ask you two questions. One moment. Let me finish.
That's why. Hold on. Let him ask the question. And then
1 moment. So first question, when you said the propositions, you accept them, if you don't take them to be true, what does accept here mean? Because I genuinely think you're trying to save yourself from the blunder you made on deduction. And second
What
of
do you
all,
mean on deduction?
when you
What's-
told me, hold on, one moment. When you told me also, what is it called? When you mentioned formal opposition, everything, you believe that opposition is real. So please cut off the formalities talk. I'm cashing this argument out on identity and distinction in reality. So go on.
Okay, for one, you're critiquing my position. When I reiterate my position, I'm not begging the question. I am trying to make you understand my position. The reason why I'm not begging the question is because the fallacy of begging the question is the informal fallacy predicated to arguments that are being made by a subject to another subject. And it's the informal fallacy where you assume the truth of your position. Of course, I assume the truth of my position, but that's not what I'm doing in making an argument to you. I'm just reinstating my argument so that you can understand it. Stop doing this whole flirtatious stuff for the TikTok. Please, just have a genuine conversation. I'm so tired of flirtatious things. Look, I am telling you right now that when you counter my position, you have to, at least from my standpoint, grant the truth of my position to actually make a deductive argument and show that my position is false. So I'm not saying that you have to believe my position to be true, but just at least grant the truth of my position and from a deductive argument, you can show how my position is false.
So critical, please.
Now,
What a reductio is.
The point is that when I said I accept your proposition, I'm not running away from a blunder. You just don't know. Like, bro, people use English in different ways. When I say I accept your proposition, I'm not saying that I'm judging it to be true. That's absolutely ridiculous. I'm saying that, look, I've taken your statement and I can believe in it if you make it more specific. That's all I mean by accepting the proposition. And I literally told you.
It's not true.
I literally told you. Let me finish. I literally told you.
Go on, my bad.
I told you that was the case because I said, look, your argument still commits the fallacy of the ambiguous nature of the middle term in the proposition. So I told you this before I told you I accept it. So I said, look, your statement is ambiguous. Now, if you specify it and delineate it, okay, then I can grant it to be true. That's all I said, and that's what I meant by accepting it. But whatever, even if you don't want to use the term accept like that, that's none of my business. I'm talking about the nature of God, the Trinity. So let's stick on it. Now, you're talking about the equivalency relation necessarily demonstrating that the opposition between the persons in the Trinity would extend to the nature. My friend, how does that work if I've given you real-world, realist examples of how two objects can be really different and still be the same in res and have two different formal objects? I've given you the example of a human being. You kept reiterating, oh no, humanity, rationality. That's never what I said. You don't listen. I said animality and rationality. Those are two different formalities in the human being. They're not just two different properties. Why are they not just two different properties? Because they're inherently contradictory, but they still constitute the same nature of a man. When I see G1, I see him use his intellect. Though that is a spiritual faculty, it deals with forms, which are spiritual because they're abstracted from matter. When I see G1, he uses his intellect and his will. But yet, when I see G1, he still uses his senses. These things, his senses, don't deal with the same thing his intellect deals with. His senses deal with brute and material things, and his intellect deals with spiritual things and things beyond. Now, in the G1, in the nature of G1, as a man, he still has these two formalities, and they still make up what G1 is. Because if G1 was just a soul, I wouldn't say he's just a man. If G1 was just a body with no soul, I wouldn't say he's just a man. G1 is a body principled by a soul, so he's constituted of both, and they're formally different. And even if you assume your position, the ridiculousness of anti-realism, even if you assume the position of nominalism, whatever, in this reality, then we can debate nominalism. But insofar as you're granting my realist presupposition to be true in order to counteract my argument, then you cannot assume your position. So stop telling me, oh,
Okay, can I assess this?
You have to. No, I'm still speaking. You wait. You wait. You have to grant my position in order to counteract my argument. If G1 has two different formalities and they're constituting the same rest, the same material identity, why does the opposition between his rationality and his animality don't extend to G1? Why? Why do we not have two different G1s? Why? Because the nature of a res or a reality can be constituted of different formalities. There's no problem with that. And you can still have two different opposing formalities. And you can have two different formalities that virtually contain themselves, like love and power. Like love and the will, or something like that. And you can have two different opposing formalities, like rationality and animality. Those are two different things. Now, in God, we have we have both of them. We have two virtually contained formalities, which is what some people want to say virtue distinctions. So love, power, will, intellect, all those things. And then we have the other one, opposing formalities, which is the paternity, the property of filiation, and spiritus in Latin, the spiration of the blessed Holy Spirit. Now, what happens is that because of the nature of the adequacy of these formalities, they don't necessarily have to execute or reduce the opposition between the persons to the nature, because the whole reality of a formality is to make sure that the essence being considered is activated or being principled by the formalities, and the formalities can still remain different, but the essence would remain one, integral, and the same. The same way that the formalities of G1 are completely opposingly different, they're even contradictory, but they constitute one man, G1. The same way that the formalities in the divine nature are different, but they constitute one divine essence, the divine God, Jesus Christ. Now, if you're talking about why is how are the persons different? Yes, the persons are different by relative opposition. To be different, the way that the essence is different from the person and the way that the persons are different from each other are completely two different things. The essence is different from the person formally, qualitatively. The essence is logically different from the properties, but the essence is different from the persons formally. Now, the persons are different from each other relatively and only by opposition. This is completely two different ways that they're different. So in order for you to make an equivalency relation to say that the opposition reduces back to the nature, you have to make sure that the difference between the persons and the difference between the natures is the same. But it's not the same. And so it does not run down to that conclusion. That's my whole point. So please,
so can I assess this?
My position. Stick with my position.
Can I assess this? No, Doc. Let's keep it with one-on-one. Anyways, when you said accepting the proposition, I still think you're trying to save face by your blunder. All the deduction and everything. Don't interrupt me. I didn't interrupt you. Because again, if you said accepting the proposition, I didn't mean accepting in the way you meant it. I just meant like I believe in it once the sense of ambiguity is removed. Well, genius, if there was ambiguity, that means it's not truth up to you. Yeah. Well, then say that. That's number one. Number two, my bad. Number two, you mentioned another thing about what is it called? Oh, I'm not begging a question. I'm just resetting my stance. That is the entire point. Do you even know what reductios are? I'm assuming your stance. I'm saying, yes, this is your stance, and I'm going to draw a contradiction, but by some sort of inference. That is the entire point. That is what reductios are. By you telling me your stance, that's just going to be begging a question. That is the entire point. Nobody responds to reductios. Hold on one moment. Nobody responds to reductios by saying, by repeating the stance that is assumed. That is nonsense. What is it called? The stance is assumed to begin with to infer the contradiction. That is number two. Number three, you told me about the whole thing about animality and rationality. First of all, are you aware that if you say the persons are just virtually distinct, which is a conceptual distinction with the foundation reality, or under my terms, it'll be just a causal mode of significance. That's gonna tantamount to Sabellianism. That's not gonna tell us. One moment, hold on, pause. Listen, I didn't interrupt you. Go back on mute. So that's tantamount just to Sabellianism, which is heresy, which is just gonna be modalism, as some sort of modalism. My entire point hinges on the proposition which you accepted, which they are in reality opposed. In reality opposed. Remember the in reality opposed. And the argument cashes this out under in reality. So when you tell me irrationality, animality, that is only virtually distinct. Or if you're, at least insofar as how Thomas takes it, virtually distinct.
I said
you don't believe, one moment. You don't believe the persons are just merely virtually distinct. You believe in reality they're opposed. So listen, what, dude, why are you interrupting? Anyways, if you believe the proposition that persons are truly in reality opposed to be true, and the second proposition, and they satisfy an equivalency relation in reality to the divine nature, then the argument still stands. Because the functional opposition, which is taken off within the relative aspect or how they relate to each other, that is a real opposition. That is not merely a virtual distinction. That is a real opposition, and this takes off within the relative aspect, but the relative and absolute aspect are one and the same in reality. They satisfy the equivalency relation. Hence, the functional opposition carries over. That is the account I'm giving. You haven't given any other counterexample to this. You've just repeated the stance, which I assume for the reductio. So I'm not even aware if you know what reductios are. I'm not even aware how you handle how propositional attitudes are conventionally, because it accepts, but there's ambiguity. You're a genius. There's not truth have to begin with because of epistemic scarcity.
I am a genius.
The final point, one moment, final point. If you take the functional opposition to be equivalent in reality and not merely, and the functional opposition in what is it called, is truly real and not merely virtual, like heresy to say, which is Sabellianism to say, between the persons and in relation to the persons, then what is that point? That has nothing to do with my argument. So again, the functional opposition carries over. One moment, hold on, pause. Okay. One moment, I'm not done. I let you. One moment, I let you.
I didn't know he's still talking. Continue.
What do you mean you didn't? Are you not tracking what I'm saying?
No, I like that.
It's okay, don't worry. Carry on.
Man.
Yeah, anyways, so listen, I've given you an account as to why the functional opposition carries over. I said by virtue of, because of this, because of the equivalency relation that is satisfied in reality. You've given none. You just assumed the stance, which I assume for the reductio. That is not how you counter reductios at all.
Okay, you done now?
One moment. We're not going to have this, just a moment. Why are you laughing? Everything. By the way, you made a blunder on deduction, you made a blunder on propositional attitudes, and you told me about animality and rationality, which are only virtually distinct. You don't believe the persons in relation to each other are only virtually distinct. You believe they're truly opposed.
I don't believe that guy explicitly said that. There's no way he explicitly said they're virtually distinct.
Wait, Jack,
listen.
Hold on, brother. One second. You can talk after.
One moment. So critical. I want to ask you something.
Yeah, go on.
So listen, critical, since I've told you the false equivalency there, and I've told you, what is it called? The whole point about begging a question, don't just, I've already assumed your stance. Telling me about your stance is not going to do anything because I'm assuming your stance for the reduction I'm making. So don't tell me about your stance, pick out the error within my line of reasoning. Tell me about my line of reasoning included the equivalency relation in reality. Hence, the functional opposition carries over. That is my entire point. Explaining your stance is just going to be begging a question because I already assumed it to begin with. I'm just explaining the absurdity that I draw out from the stance that I assumed. So go on.
Okay, 1 second. Does Jad, do you want to say anything?
Bro.
No.
I just thought it was silly. Critical actually gave an example of animality and rationality to show an analogy.
Okay. No, dogpot.
Okay.
But Jad is just reiterating what I said, is that they're not merely virtually distinct.
He actually said that.
No, come
Okay.
Give an example.
Can I speak now?
Go on.
Okay. Yeah. This is the most stupid thing. This is so stupid. I swear, people on TikTok, you're actually
not an argument.
Supposed to be an intelligent person, and you can't even track what I said. So the example that I brought, so dumb. The example that I brought between the formalities of G1, rationality and animality, okay? Those weren't examples to show how the persons in the Trinity are distinct. Those were examples to show how two things can be distinct and still have the same res. You went on 5 hours talking about nothing. Nothing. That wasn't an example to show how the persons are distinct. 1. 2, you keep reiterating a position I do not hold. Vienna, whatever your name is. Because I do not hold that rationality and animality in a man are virtually distinct. I told you that I am not taking the Dominican Thomistic position. It's one thing to be Thomist, and it's one thing to be Thomist, and it's one thing to be Thomist, or the Suarezans who think the modern, even Jesuits. So it's complicated in Catholic theology. Okay, I take the Scotus position more when it comes to things like God and the essence and the quiddity of a form and its reality and its relation with act and potency. And I told you this before the argument even started. You just don't understand the argument. It's embarrassing. Now, when it comes to the Lord Jesus Christ, I'm going to tell you, don't be making jokes around because you don't know what you're talking about.
What?
Jesus Christ, as a person, is formally different from the essence. I've told you this so many times, and you're never going to get it. You're never going to get it. Jesus Christ, as a person, is formally different from the essence. So what it means to be a form differs amongst some scholastics. But to me, what a form is a quality of a particular thing. A form is the qualitative aspect of some entity X. The formality of a person is qualitatively different from the essence, because the essence is the principle of action in a thing, and the person, by virtue of what it is the supposition or the suppositum of something that has individuated a nature that has a rationale. And so the formality of the person of the Son is only formally different from the divine essence. And the Son relatively opposes the Father by a relation. But that's not how the persons are different from the divine essence. The persons are different from the divine essence formally, not really. So for someone to come to me, okay, someone comes to me on the street, he says, okay, cool, look, you believe in the triune, one true Jesus Christ Lord. I said, yes. The person then comes to me and says, okay, cool. The persons are relatively different. I say yes. And the person says, okay, but the essence is the same in reality as with the Son. I say yes, they are formally different, but they're materially the same. And he does not know what I mean by formal distinction, because he thinks that I'm just taking a virtue. No, a formal distinction. They are formally different, qualitatively different, right? And the person says, okay, cool. And they assume what I mean onto what I'm saying. And then the person says, okay, cool. If the Son and the Father are formally different from the divine essence, and the Father and the Blessed Son oppose each other, then if the Son is the same, now when they say the same, look what they do. They say, oh, but the Son is the same as the divine nature, or the divine existence, and the Father is the same as the divine existence. Therefore, the Father and the Son must be the same. And I'm saying, okay, what do you mean by the word same? What do you mean by the word same? Because they're the same in what way? Formally, qualitatively, ideally, eminently, virtually, really, materially, entitatively. In what way are they the same? I say that they're only the same entitatively, as in that you can technically say, as St. Augustine said on the Trinity, Book 4, Chapter 6, that the Father is the same as the Son. Someone can actually say that the Father is the same as the Son. But then what does St. Augustine mean by that? And what did the Blessed Scholastics mean by that? That the Father and the Son in the divine nature have the same entity. Now, that's a different way of understanding the word same. But when we say that the Father and the Son are different, how are they different? They're different by the way they're related to each other. So the equivalency between the distinction of the Father and the Son and the distinction between the Father and the Son and the essence are not the same. So to say it's going to collapse doesn't follow true.
Can I assess this?
Because the equivalency is not clarified. That's one.
Can I assess this?
And if you bring... No, you're not going to assess until I'm done speaking. If you bring up, right, me talking about accepting a proposition one more time because you disagree with my utility of a specific word, I'm going to conclude that you're a sophist and I'm going to leave the life.
Wait, wait, pause.
Sticking on the
utilizing fallacies to get my point across. Which fallacy did I use? One more. No. You're not going to do this tactical run anyway. What?
Why are you interrupting me now? Okay, go on.
You don't make any accusations.
No, go on.
Can I assess what you said?
Go on.
Yeah. First of all, sophistry is just utilizing what is it called, fallacies to get my point across. So which fallacy did I?
No.
Hold on. Pause. You want me to go back on mute? Let me finish.
No.
You said go on and you stopped.
No, I'm not going to let you finish.
Because you said go on.
No. So
you're going to retract what you said 10 seconds earlier?
No.
Yeah, exactly. One moment. He literally said go on. One moment. Why is he interrupting me?
He interrupted me.
Allow him to finish his response, my bad. I misspoke.
Anyway.
Yeah. Go on.
Who are you saying that to, G1?
Critical, then you can respond afterwards.
But he said go on. What?
Because you interrupted me. Maybe if you didn't interrupt me, you'd be allowed to continue your statement.
Why'd you say go on? You could have said don't interrupt.
Come on, man.
He doesn't listen to anything, do you?
Time is money.
I literally listened to
He literally said go on.
That's my job. I listen.
Then he said
You are an
go on.
animal.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
bro.
I was confused. I was like, why is he saying go on after stopping her?
Speak, man. Like, Jared, I don't want to kick you, man. Just like critical speed.
Okay, here's the thing. He's gonna be. He literally just said, "Oh, sophistry, me blah blah blah," but I have a different understanding of what it means to be a sophist. And the funniest thing is, he consistently does this thing where he forces what his understanding of a particular word or a particular semantic term, how it's used according to him, and he tries to use it to refute me. No, Henry Grenier, right, a French philosopher and theologian in the 16th to 18th century, he wrote in his book on the volume on logic, right after he spoke about the principle of contradiction, he spoke about sophistry. He doesn't define sophistry as just merely using logical fallacies. That's not what he defines sophistry as. And that's not what the Bible uses the term sophistry as. And that's not what the oldest philosophers use the term sophistry as. So stop trying to force your stupid understanding of a word on me. Please stick to the point. And also make sure, don't even run away from it. Answer my objection, right, of how there is seemingly no equivalency between the way the persons are distinct and between the way they're distinct from the essence. And thus, the opposition between the blessed persons of the divine Trinity is not going to be reduced to an opposition.
Can I assess this?
Essence and place and
Wait,
process.
first of all, is my voice audible? Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, that's fine. Anyways, so look, so let me just recap the entire thing. First of all, on the virtual point, again, like the point about, basically the entire point, look, guys, Vienna's argument against the Trinity, which the two propositions he only needs to suppose, which critical Thomist said are true, is wrong because critical Thomist, he doesn't take a Dominican position on animality and rationality. He takes a Franciscan position, guys. He takes a Franciscan position on rationality and animality. Therefore, the argument is wrong. So that is his entire point for the first half of it. Complete non sequitur, complete derail, doesn't address anything I've said, and that's just an implicit admission that Dominicans are just gone out the window and thrown into the trash bin. So let me address the Franciscan point, okay? One moment. Let's listen. Let me address this point, okay, Mr. I'm not a Thomist, okay? Listen, I want to assess this point about humanity and rationality. I mean, animality and rationality, my bad. Again, those just pick out different features, hence they're just virtually distinct. There's a conceptual distinction with the foundation and reality. Now, again, this entire argument where I given you two propositions, you accepted, you said it's true. Not accepted in your own ambiguous way, where you said propositions are not true, but you accept them, and then I don't even know what that means. This whole blunder about what even propositional attitudes are and what deduction is. So, what is it called? My point about the argument hinges on two propositions you said are true. Now deny the line of reasoning there. You've done nothing except give me a counterexample and then responding to the counter rebuttal I've given you by saying, I'm not a Dominican, I'm a Franciscan about rationality and rationality. Listen, at that point, it's just that's the whole point is just derail. Now, what's that's irrelevant even still. Like
He's not tracking, bro.
One moment. What do you mean he's not tracking?
He's not
You
tracking.
didn't track. One moment. Let me finish my point. The initial point I've given you, I've assumed, given the two propositions you said it was true, I've already assessed that, and the argument still follows there, and I've given you why it follows. Because one moment, why are you interrupting?
Oh, sorry.
I let you talk for 15 minutes.
Continue.
Anyways, because of the fact of the equivalency relation that is satisfied there, which you already accepted, explaining your stance, which I already assume is not going to tell me much, because this is a reductio. I'm drawing the absurdity, I'm showing you the absurdity from the assumption of the stance. Whatever you're explaining, critical, one moment, whatever you're explaining there, I am assuming it. I'm saying it is true, and this is how it entails an absurdity. This is the entire point. Now, assumption here, to actually explain your point about, maybe you don't even know what assumption is there. Assumption here is not merely your own fantasizing way of like acceptance and everything. No, the proposition is truth-apt, and you judge it to be true. Not your weird, ambiguous way of truth and everything. And then one part of his message was this way of like, I don't know, like we're not in the streets of London. Don't threaten me. the Lord Jesus
You
Christ
said
will pay
you're
with
not
everything.
addressing my position.
That's not gonna tell me. Why are you interrupting?
Let him speak.
Yeah, exactly. Hold on, critical. Yo, go back on mute. Anyways, listen. Look, the whole point about don't joke with the Lord Jesus Christ, completely right. And the other point was ad hominems. Listen, the entire point was gibberish off the top to bottom, and half the time it was just ranting about how he's a Franciscan.
Wouldn't be considered gibberish, but
One moment. Half the time.
bro.
One moment. I'm trying to respond. Why are you guys trying to dogpot? Every single time a Muslim came here and there was a moment of like potential dogpot, I said don't dogpot. So don't dogpile on me. Anyways, so every single time, yeah, what is it called? The other half of your rebuttal, there was like you yapping and just complaining that you're a Franciscan about rationality and animality. It's not going to tell me much. As long as you believe the equivalency relation is going to be within denotative content, i.e., content that's going to be real, ontologically committed to, the argument, and you said already the propositions was expressed this, are true. You said the proposition, the persons are relatively opposed, in reality is true. You said the proposition, the persons are identical to the divine nature and reality are true. That is all I need. If you repeat the stance, which I assume for the reductio, is not going to tell me much. Nobody ever assesses a reductio by repeating the stance, which the reductio assumes. That's going to be begging a question. And your final point about what is animality and rationality. Yeah, frankly, I even said, like, I'm at, what is it called? I'm talking about with some sort of like Dominican assessment of this, which is why I said Aquinas in the beginning.
Oh my gosh.
And if you mention Scotus, hold on, when you mention Scotus, again, if you believe animality and rationality are opposed in reality, in the same way the persons are opposed in reality, then what is it called? And I believe that distinction is going to be false too. And that's number one. Number two, and I'd argue the Dominicans had a better idea of it because they're only merely virtually distinct. No, number two, if you believe animality and rationality are not different the same way the Trinitarian persons are different with respect to each other, then it's not analogous to begin with. That is the entire point. Complete derail, complete, what is it called? Complete non sequitur. You've shown nothing. The only thing you've demonstrated is, number one, you use accepting in some sort of like vague way to save your face, to save face from the blunder you've committed on deduction and propositional attitudes. Mr. I accept the proposition, but I don't truly accept it because it's not true because of ambiguity. Well, then it's not truth. So that's blunder number one. Blunder number two, which you talked, what is it called? Which you yapped about, like, oh man, this is the position. This is the position, man. This is the position. At the same time, the stances I assumed within the argument you said are true is so you assess the reduction by repeating the stance. That is completely a blunder. You don't even track. You've completely not tracked any of what is called of the premises of cashed up for this argument. Nothing is in. All you're repeating. One moment. Or you're just repeating the stance, which is assumed within the reduction. That's number two. No, blunder number three. You yapping. Oh, it's not necessarily a blunder, but it's just you yapping. Like one time you're threatening me. Am I getting muted?
We don't.
Who's the troll playing sound effects? Yeah, anyways, one time you're threatening me with, like, again, we're not the streets of Baghdad, so calm yourself. Yeah, you didn't tell him to speed up and he yapped younger than me.
Because I didn't expect you to take this long.
Well, and it took 15 minutes.
No,
I
you
took
didn't
less than
take that
10
long,
minutes.
Vienna. Come on, bro. Like, it took me, it's like 3, bro.
This guy's rude.
Yo, let's continue. Downstairs, grabbed the apple, came back, and what's going on, man?
Anyway, so listen.
Just continue.
One more. We're not gonna listen. I want to further the dialectic. By the way, like G1, I don't know why you're being unfair because he spoke for longer, and he said I didn't expect this to take this long. Anyways, so critical. Let's engage in a back and forth. Do you believe? Let's engage in a back and forth very quickly. Do you believe that the distinction between animality and rationality, when it's said within a subject, is it the same distinction as it's said within the Trinitarian persons?
You made a couple of points. I'm going to respond to them before I even do the back and forth thing. So for one, my friend is Muslim. Listen, making it simple. First off, there's a particular understanding of what it means to be a Thomist. So to be a Thomist, and this is what a lot of people don't actually understand, because they just watch YouTube, watch TikToks, and then go away and sit back home, which is what you do. To be a Thomist means that you're studying the blessed St. Thomas Aquinas, okay? Now, there are people that follow St. Thomas Aquinas, but there's people that follow St. Thomas Aquinas and claim different ways of understanding what St. Thomas Aquinas taught. So some Jesuits call themselves Thomists, Scotus call themselves Thomist, funny enough, and a lot of Dominican Thomists don't actually hold it. Some of them disagree with Aquinas on certain things. It's complex in the Blessed Catholic Church, and it's complex.
They're still materially the same in G1 and make him up.
The divine essence, and you ask me for my position, okay? What does it mean for them to be the same as the divine essence? Which is why G1 in the comments said you're not addressing my position, because you're not. What does it mean?
Because you're not. What does it mean?
What does it mean according to
Okay, what does it mean? It means that they're materially the same or they're entitatively the same. It doesn't mean that they're qualitatively the same. And that's the big difference.
if they're not qualitatively the same, right, then you can import a relative opposition. And this is evident in so many scholastic ideas of particular things in reality. So an example of this, even though Reed or Rad, or whatever his name is, would disagree with me on how they're distinct, is that a common idea of motion in Aristotelian philosophy is that motion itself is a res. It's a thing in reality, okay? Motion is a thing in reality. Things really change. Now, there's a difference between act and potency. Potency is the capacity to receive act. Act is the existence, the perfection of that capacity. And obviously in relation to motion, you're going to have action and passion, which is just, potency and act. Now, the difference between action and passion are, according to me, relatively opposite. So action and passion relatively oppose each other. But they are formally distinct from motion because passion is qualitatively different from change, and action is qualitatively different from change. But in reality, they're still the same thing, because when you have action, you have change. When you have passion, you have change. But action in accordance or in reference to passion are relatively different. This is a metaphysical example that Aquinas actually gives in question 23, I think, or question 20. This is a metaphysical example of having one res, one material reality, one entity constituted of two formalities, and those formalities bringing about a relative opposition. The same way that the blessed divine essence in the Trinity is constituted of two formalities in this particular scenario when we're talking about the Father and the Blessed Son. And those formalities is going to be paternity and filiation. The same way that the formalities of motion is going to be action and passion. And paternity brings forth a procession to filiation, which is the Son. And now the Father and the Son relatively oppose each other the same way action relatively opposes passion. How is someone going to say, okay, because action opposes passion, you're gonna now divide motion into two, or like the opposition between action and passion is gonna extend back to motion. No, it's not gonna extend back to motion, because the identity relation is different. The way that action and passion are different is different from the way that action and passion are different from motion. And the way that the Father and the Son are different from each other is different from the way the Father and the Son are different from the divine nature. So the point is that the Father and the Son, right, is analogous to that of motion. And we have a metaphysical example of how a relative opposition does not contract itself back to its rest. Why? The only reason why is because the identity relation between the Father and the Son and between the Father, the Son, and the essence are not the same. And so if they're not the same, your whole argument about equivalency or that they all collapse. That's the whole point. Simple. Simple as. You're never going to debunk the Trinity. Stop it.
So can we actually have this back and forth before, like, you yapping about the action and passion, which is just
Yeah,
one
let's have the
example?
back and forth.
So
how does-
listen,
how
look,
do you debunk
you
the
already
Trinity?
assessed. One moment, hold on, yo, go back on mute. Anyways, listen, you
How did
already
you debunk the
assessed.
Trinity?
One minute, hold on. You said it's not analogous.
Are you
to
going-
begin
are you
with.
having a
Second,
back
here's
and
my
forth
point.
or-
One, dude, one moment. Listen, you
Are you
already
talking or are
said.
you having a back and forth?
Broski,
Yeah, we're trying to have a back and forth, but you don't interrupt.
Okay, go on.
Yeah,
Make
so
your assertion.
one minute. Yeah, exactly. Even your back
Make
and
your
forth
assertion, make your assertion.
even your back and forth is your own private language
no,
with
make
you
your
accepting our
assertion.
proposition. Anyways, listen, look. And one moment, G1, don't talk about.
Keep it cordial.
Yeah, one moment. Dude, I'm literally calm. Anyways, listen. Look.
He's just telling you keep it cordial, man. Relax your pants.
Oh no, but bro, I'm relaxed. You're branding me. One, listen, Kiriko, you try to like pull up on me.
Relax.
Don't
Like, it's not
don't
that
talk
deep,
about
bro.
the Lord Jesus Christ.
man.
Do you know
Or
what
I'm
I'm
gonna
saying?
leave.
Like,
Anyways, listen, look, we're derailing. One minute, yo, go back on topic. Listen, be a good boy. Listen, so critical. Again, you already
Yes,
conceded to what
yes,
I said.
my
It's
son,
not
what's up?
analogous. Yeah, exactly. I am your master. Be a good boy.
my son, what's up?
Listen,
What's
no,
my name?
look, listen. You literally called me master. You know
My
who you're
son,
talking to.
what's up?
I'm gonna mute both of you. Bro, I swear, please allow Vienna to respond, innit? And please, Vienna, please don't.
My bad.
If you derail, he's gonna derail. And if he derails, you're gonna derail. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Anyways, so let me assess this. Anyways, the guy said it's not analogous. So about the action and passion. Anyways, action and passion about motion. Well, there's just instances of motion. They're under the category of motion, and they then can be set off as
Yeah, I
subject.
disagree.
So one moment. Why are you interrupting?
Wait, hold on.
Anyways, they
Esra,
can
let
be.
me just-
G1, why are you interrupting?
Because I'm telling you to. So you don't want me to. I can't lie, bro. Don't make me kick you, bro. I'm trying to help you out, and you're saying, why am I? I'm the host. What the heck?
So you're trying to put him on his leash? Go on.
I can't like relax, bro, because I'll kick you. Because now you're just disrespecting me, him, and the,
Bro, he literally threatened me. I was trying to cash out my argument. He was
Bro,
like,
legit,
if you
I'm trying to
disrespect
tell
the
him to
Lord
relax,
Jesus
so when
Christ
you
one
make
more
your
time.
point, you can respond, innit? But you know what? Let me just.
Yeah, you can't disrespect your maker.
I
man.
never, one minute, I'm known to not blaspheme.
You can't disrespect your maker, bro.
Bro, hold on, how would I have a countdown at the end of
You
this?
can't disrespect your maker, bro.
That's fine. My God created your God. Anyways, listen, look. So back to
That's
what I was
definitely
saying.
not true.
So listen, look, anyways, back to what I was saying. Look, these are just instances of motion, or they can be expressed within an intentional context, i.e., this is the act of passion, this is the act of, what is it called? Act of action, and so on, act and passion therein. That is the entire point. Or there can be instances like dark red and light red under the category red. This is not going to express some sort of equivalency relation therein. We're talking about equivalency relations. You don't even know what I'm saying. You half the time just repeated the stance, and the stance I assume for the reductio. And you already said it's not analogous to begin with. And one moment, listen, you already said it's not analogous to begin with. And why are you bringing them up? Man up, muster up the courage. You said the Lord Jesus, everything, muster up the courage to defend your Lord and show me why he's not a non-being in front of everybody. Muster up the courage. Stop giving me outdated scholastic examples, which I've addressed a billion times. And one, yo,
No, your time is gone.
Address this one by one,
Where's his
and be a
timer?
man.
Where's
Address
his
the
stupid
argument that
timer?
I'm giving you. Go on.
Shut your mouth, you flipping pagan. Now listen, my son. Yeah, because you know you're pagan.
upset. You're
you
upset.
know you're a pagan.
You're upset.
So listen. Now, yes, give me that spotlight. Thank you. My son, Vienna, you listening? You listening? Or you're on mute. I don't know why. I don't know why it's
Wait, it's gonna be 2 minutes. It's gonna be like what? 3 minutes. Vienna, what do you
It's a
want? 2 3
stone
minutes,
worshipping pagan. So true.
2 3 minutes, Vienna. Which one? Hurry
Okay,
up,
so-
hurry up.
Okay, so what was I gonna say? Okay, see, this guy's you're a professional
You
idiot.
got 2 minutes in it. Go ahead.
It's very hard to be an idiot, but you excel in that job. So now I brought you the metaphysical example. Your argument was to suppose that my position leads to a contradiction, and then this idiot is assuming his position. He's telling me, oh yeah, motion is just composed of instances and all these things. He's supposing his stupid nominalist, anti-realist, dumb David Hume, heretical, paganistic view. And he's not showing me from my position the contradiction. He's assuming his nominalistic position. This is why this guy's an idiot. Now, Vienna, you tell me without assuming your stupid position on universals and look, if you want to have a debate about nominalism, please be my guest because I'll do that all day. But insofar as you're talking about the Lord your God, you better assume my position to show me the contradiction in my position. Otherwise, you're just yapping. Now, obviously, right, I want you, please, to just attack my position from my standpoint. How does what I say from my standpoint go against? My time is going up. How does what I'm saying from my standpoint contradict itself? Stop assuming your stupid bundle theorist nominalist view on my position. It's that simple. Now, go ahead.
See, man. Cool.
Anyways, so listen, look, yo, hold on. Critical. So you mentioned nothing except you given counter examples, which I've already addressed. I told you instances, and I told you this can be expressed within some sort of intentional context, my bad. And this intentional context is not going to denote it's not going to give denotative content. That is number one. And you even said they're not analogous to the Trinity. You clown. You already said this. Number two, where in the argument? This guy said universals. There is nothing within the argument that talks about universals or nominalism. The only thing in the argument, just which the propositions he agreed to, he said, yes, the persons are identical in reality to what they adhere in. And yes, the persons are opposed to what they relate and how they relate to each other. In reality, there's true relative opposition and there's true identity. This clown doesn't even know what he's talking about. So listen, critical, stop running to the examples that I've already assessed 1,000 times, okay? Now, and also don't threaten me with like the Lord Jesus Christ. I've never blasphemed. I never disrespected you. Just blasphemed, but I'd be the bigger man because you know who your master is. You even clocked in calling me your master, but you had to save face. The same way you saved face when you said, I'm accepting the proposition, but there's ambiguity, but the proposition is ambiguous and everything. Oh, my Lord, Nigeria. Like, that's not going to tell me much. Actually, man up, muster up the courage. The example I've told you, it can be extended to some sort of intentional context and assessed therein, or it could be divided within some sort of an instantiation or instances given out, and you can express them there. Stop being a clown. Muster up the courage if you truly have a zeal for your God, which was created by my God. Have some zeal, man up, and said, this is why this line of reasoning doesn't follow. One moment, listen, hold on. There is nothing about he accepted the propositions that I assumed to draw the reductio. He accepted the stances. He said, this stance is true, which I assume, and I draw the absurdity. This guy's a clown. He's trying to run away because he knows he's going to get clapped. The only thing he's doing is trying to show outdated examples to save face. But listen, nobody's saving face. Hold on. That's fine. Go on.
Okay.
2 minutes done?
Yeah. Just go 2 minutes in our time on my phone then. So that's why go ahead, 2 minutes. Give me a second.
Critical, I pity you. He said David Hume. This is the extent of anti-realism, David Hume.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I know you said the examples aren't analogous anyways to the opposition that takes off. So one point pride.
Vienna, man.
Hello?
2 minutes starts now, yeah? When you want the 2 minutes, you want to start now?
Yeah, go on.
Cool, start.
Bro, you are a disgrace to your religion.
And you're a disgrace to logic and rationality when you made a blunder in
You don't even have...
The average IQ in Nigeria is like 70. No wonder you're...
excuse me, so you speak about Nigeria? Let's talk about your stupid country. Palestine or whatever. Which one?
I'm from the Gulf. I could buy you
Which one?
something and
Which
have
Arab
you
country?
pick up car and you
Which
keep
Arab country?
Vienna.
Which Arab country you from?
I told you, I'm
Don't
from the
ever-
Gulf.
don't
Yeah, you're
ever
upset.
come-
Look at him derailing. Look at him
don't
derailing.
ever
Look at him.
come-
Look at him
No,
derailing.
Vienna,
Like a
bro.
clown.
Chill out. I
Which
caused the
Arab
time
country
for
are
him.
you from? Their
Yeah,
opportunity
which
is
Arab
true.
country?
Time for him, Vienna, bro. Vienna, if you interrupt him one more time, we're just gonna kick you. I can't.
Oh, yeah, no, hold on. He interrupted
I mean,
me.
look,
Bro, it was his time to talk. What are you talking
was
about?
my
I know,
time
but
to
he
talk.
interrupted me when
Why
I
is
was
he
my time.
interrupting me?
Bro,
I didn't even interrupt you. I didn't even interrupt you.
Do you want? Can I respond to what you said?
Time. How could you interrupt you in short time?
Do you want? Can I? What
See
is it
how he's
called? Can I
interrupting
assess
me?
what you
Bro,
said?
just-
Vienna, bro, let him talk, bro.
Do you want? Can I assess what you said?
Bro, if you don't let him talk right in 10
Why
seconds.
is he interrupting me? Hello?
Anyways,
thank
you're
you.
critical. My slave. Go.
Okay, he's getting
Your-
kids. You see
your
this
father is
disrespect?
my
I don't
slave.
get this.
Yo,
Your